You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hella Well with Danielle podcast. I am Danielle Washington, your host, and Happy New Year. This is our first episode of the year of 2021, and I wanted to start off the year right. Oftentimes we're saying new year, new me, when really it's new year, old me, because our plates are still full. And that's why I really wanted to talk about capacity this week and really thinking about, let's not start the year off with our plate being completely full and we're at capacity and we're stressed out, we're resentful, we're snapping at people. I want to start off fresh. And that's why I wanted to have Nicole Rhone, who is a gifted capacity coach and also the host of the Flow and Flourish Podcast, come in and talk to us about, are we living at capacity? And how do you define and figure out if you're at capacity or under capacity and, recognizing it? And then how do you flow through it to make sure that you are taking better care of yourselves? And something about Nicole is, she really helps women just like you create a balance between their personal and professional lives and helping them prioritize their self-care. Because of her corporate experience as a human resource leader, Nicole understands the unique challenges of busy, high-performing women just like you on how lack of fluidity between the worlds of home and work can create a barrier between them and the next level. And we're all about getting to the next level in 2021. And the best way to figure that out is making sure, is my plate full? And if it is, how do I remove things without feeling guilt or shame? And how do I move forward into living a life full of purpose on all my terms? This episode's for you. But before we start this episode, I wanted to make sure to remind you, especially if you're new to the show, that we are doing a 5-day challenge next week called Breaking Up from the Norm. And in this challenge, we're really getting focused in on, helping you break away the habits and patterns that no longer serve you. So you can redefine what wellness means to you, redefine the life on your terms, and not just set up, New Year's resolutions that will most likely die in a week or so. But this is a way for you to really set yourself up to create a wellness plan that really works. So let's go. Welcome, Nicole, to the Hella Well with Danielle podcast. How are you today?
I am wonderful, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good. Happy New Year's.
Yes. Happy New Year. 2021. We made it.
Oh, I felt like we weren't going to make it. 2020 was a year, but we've made it. This is actually the first podcast of the year. And it's the first podcast in the year. And that's why I wanted you to be here, because it's the first podcast in the year. And many of us on day 3 are probably at the point where we're already living at capacity. And I really, we talk about new year, new me. But if you're going new year, new me, and you still coming in from 2020 at full capacity or above, like, how are we living? And I just would love to kind of talk to you about, and let me phrase that. You talk about when you flow effortlessly, you flourish tremendously. Mm-hmm. I just want to know, let's just start off with, how does one flow effortlessly?
That is a really good question. In my mind, flowing effortlessly is really about being aware of what's on your plate and understanding what you're kind of trying to navigate through. And so I'd say 50% of that is really in the awareness piece. And so once you are really aware, it allows you to change things that may need to be changed, right? If it's a relationship that's blocking your flow, if it's a job or something in your career that's blocking your flow. Hell, if you are blocking your own flow.
Wait, say that one more time.
If you, sis, are blocking your own flow, right? If you're in your own way, mentally, emotionally, and physically, or any of those areas, you have to really get in touch and understand what is blocking your flow so that you can navigate and let it flow freely, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. I always use the analogy of the barbecue plate. the little plastic plate, or usually it's a paper plate. You're at a barbecue, because we all go to barbecue. You're at, Uncle Jun's barbecue.
Not
I don't know
Uncle
why I always have to be
June.
Uncle June. Girl, I don't have nobody's name Uncle June. But it just works for me.
It does. It does.
But you're at Uncle June's barbecue and you got all the things you love, and it's music's going, and there's just everything you love. And we always tend to put everything on our plate to the point to where the plate is like heavy. And the plate's so heavy that, some things fall off as you're trying to walk back to your spot. And that's our life. We put so many different things on our plate, whether it's good things or bad things, but we put so much on our plate that things start falling apart to the point where that plate in our life starts falling apart and just crumbles or crashes to the ground. So I know that you talk about the 5 areas of capacity. Can you kind of break down the different areas of capacity? And especially, I know that you talk about 3 capacities affect all of our life. And I would really love to hear you talk about that and go a little bit deeper in those.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just say, I really, really love your plate analogy, because it could be one of 2 things, right? Stuff can start falling off. Or if you're working with a flimsy plate, or maybe even if it's not flimsy, it can crack, right? It can break. So either way, that's not a good scenario. And so what I do is work through these 5 different areas of flow, and I'm measuring capacity in 3 different ways. So let's start with the 5 pillars of flow. So we have heart flow. And for me, that's anything that pulls on your heartstrings. And namely because everything that we do literally flows from our hearts, right? So really being able to be honest with ourselves on what's happening in our heart and addressing some of those things. We also have health flow. And from a health perspective, I talk about it mentally, physically, emotionally. And I can get into my story in a little bit around how all that kind of manifests in the physical form when you're not dealing with things mentally or emotionally. And then we also have your workflow. And so being able to really be fulfilled in the work that you're doing, whether it is in a corporate space, if it's in an entrepreneur space, if it's like us and maybe a combination of the 2. So really being able to navigate through that space in and of itself. And then we also have your faith flow. And so again, this is whatever it is that you choose to believe. It doesn't have to be, Christianity or anything like that, but whoever and whatever it is that you believe, really tapping into that to help you navigate through each and every one of these other pillars. And I think I said all 5, right? We got health, heart, cash, work, and faith. Yeah, we're good. So with that, so I use those different pillars to help you to measure your capacity. And when I think about capacity, it really, for me, is how you're able to show up and do things well, so at good quality over a consistent amount of time. And like you said, many of us are really running around at max capacity and don't even know it. And so I look at it from high capacity, which means if you have a high capacity, it kind of sounds counterintuitive, but you have more room, right? If your capacity is high. You have moderate capacity, which is really you being in the middle. And then low capacity, or actually max capacity, where you can't even take anything else in. And so I'm helping to really figure out what is it that's on your plate that's causing you to be at either one of these different levels, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. But so with that, how do you have this, well, I know that you have this bomb capacity calculator, but if someone doesn't have that, and I'm definitely going to recommend for you guys all to check out her capacity calculator, because it definitely is a game changer. But if you don't have a capacity calculator, how does one figure out, am I high, low, or medium?
Yeah. This is, hear me say awareness a lot, because so often things are coming up and we're dismissing them. And I made a post, I made a post earlier this week that talked a little bit about trusting your gut. And so very often things are happening in our lives that we're not paying attention to, whether we're more tired than we normally are, even though we're taking the different vitamins, we're eating good, we're exercising, or there's this clutteredness in your brain, right? Like you feel overwhelmed no matter how many times you write out a to-do list, no matter how many times you strategically plan out your day, and then none of that stuff is getting done. Another way that you can tell that you're at max capacity is just your mood and how you're interacting with people. And I know for me, this came up as snapping at any and everybody. Like I was cool at work, right? And able to really put on my work face and be good and help my clients and all of that. But then when I would come home, I'm snapping over the littlest things. Like, why is the blanket off the couch? And how come there's 2 dishes in the sink? And,
Not 2 dishes, girl. Don't come to
why
my
are there
house.
2 dishes in the sink? How dare you?
You could only have one.
Like one would have been better. But really just making a fuss over nothing sometimes because you're so amped up internally and you're not really expressing that. And so it shows up in you in those different ways. So really just tapping into what you're feeling in the moment and paying attention to that and not writing it off for, oh, I've been like this for a while, so it's nothing new.
Yeah, no, and I love that because it kind of goes back to the first part of my coaching program, which is AIR journey, and goes back to awaken to the roots of your thoughts and your habits and patterns, and it shows up. We always do, like, it is what it is. I was just on the struggle. I was just meant to struggle. This is just life. But instead of just saying this is life, it's like, okay, let me become more diligent and aware of where I am and those things that are causing me to feel overwhelmed, resentful, and snapping at everyone versus just saying it is what it is. And especially in the new year. Like if you're talking about new year, new you, let's start making changes. And the first change is being aware.
Yeah, I would agree. And then with that, even coming off of 2020, right? Just because the new year changes doesn't mean that we magically have resolved all the things that happened in 2020. Let's just be honest.
Let's keep it 100% real is what you're saying.
Yes.
Let's keep it real to real.
Yeah.
Yes.
It comes along with you, right? The different mindsets that you had, the different habits that you had. You may have this desire to feel more free and to feel better, but what did you bring into 2021 with you that needs to go, that needs to get off your plate?
Yeah. And it's not just, what did you bring in or what needs to get off your plate, but new year, new you, if you're not changing your thoughts, if you're not changing your habits, if you're not really looking at, okay, where am I at capacity? Where can I shift things? There's no difference between the date. Today's just January 3rd versus it being December 31st.
Yep. It's no difference. And I love that you say that because one of the biggest areas where I see people being at max capacity is mentally and emotionally. Because as women, right, we're running around and you've heard it, the superhero, superwoman, not wanting to sit it down. Or if you're like me and you come from a space where you're the breadwinner or you're the first who've gotten married or had kids or first one to really make it financially and those sorts of things, it's almost this duty and obligation that you carry around with you. And so while you're doing all of that, emotionally, sometimes it's hard to deal with the other stuff that's happening that maybe other people don't know about, right? For me, that was my marriage crumbling and really not knowing who to talk to and being embarrassed and ashamed to talk to anybody in my family about it because on the outside, I looked like I had it all together. And then seeing that then spiral and impact how I was showing up at work and where I was overpromising and under delivering, or also showing up in how I was parenting, right? Like not necessarily going to basketball games or not spending the amount of time with the kids that I normally would because I'm so in this deep, dark space that I just don't even have the energy to do it. And so mentally and emotionally, we take in and take on so much. And when you're at max capacity there, like literally everything else falls to pieces. That's where that plate starts to crack. And that was similar to what happened to me when I ended up in ICU literally fighting for my life because I was not dealing with what was going on mentally and emotionally.
Wow, I appreciate you sharing all that with us because I trust and believe there's other people who will relate to where you are. One of the things you mentioned was that you were overpromising and under-delivering. How did you become aware that you were doing that? Because it's not like you were probably doing it thinking, oh, I'm overpromising and under-delivering, or were you aware of it? I'm assuming you probably weren't. But so how did you eventually become aware of that to be able to change that?
Yeah. So, of course, initially I was not aware, right? I was doing what I normally do, which is, oh, yes, I can do that. Absolutely, I can do that. Saying yes to every single thing. And I've been so used to figuring it out and making it work that I'm like, okay, I can just keep adding and adding and adding. I didn't become aware until stuff started to literally fall off the plate. Specifically last year, maybe about a year and a half ago, during talent review time. So I come from an HR space, and talent review, end of the year stuff is performance reviews where you're helping everybody get, their whole life together, if they're going to get a bonus or a merit increase. And so there's a lot of work that goes into that. And I realized that I had committed to running all of these manager sessions, yet I had terminations that were going on, and I had one-on-one coaching that was happening in my office. I completely forgot about a termination that was happening. So the person was supposed to be terminated that day, right? I left the manager hanging completely in the room, waiting for me. I had the paperwork, like all of that. When the stuff hit the fan that day, I was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, what is this? This is not you. And so that was the first sign, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, it just continued to be little things. Like my director that I partnered with would ask me to provide her with my notes from a session or give her an update on a project that we were working on. And I would keep saying yes, but then I realized I wasn't delivering. And so I had to literally step back and be like, okay, girl, what's going on here? What are you doing? Because this is not like you. What's happening? And I was so emotionally and mentally taxed from all the things that were happening outside of work that I wasn't able to show up the way that I knew I could inside of work.
That's deep. And so I love that you were able to take inventory of your own relationship with yourself and kind of what was going on and really dig deeper. And I know that I've heard you talk before about, there's 3 questions you should ask yourself before asking, talking to or helping your friends and other people. Like, what are those 3 things to kind of, what am I trying to say? Basically, what I'm trying to ask you.
Okay, I got you, girl. I got you.
It's like one of those new year, I'm having new brain and the brain is not fully working right now. But it's like, what are the 3 key questions you should ask yourself before you help anybody in your circle or at work or just in general?
Yeah. So the 3 things that I like to make sure you're asking yourself before you put yourself in a position to help anybody is, number 1, how is this going to impact me and my needs, right? Like, oftentimes that's either the last question or it's not a question at all. You just jump in and you go. But if you think about what you need and how giving yourself to someone or something else is going to impact that, that can really stop you dead in your tracks. Number 2, I would say, is to ask, is this in alignment with my goals, right? Like, because you can sit up and say, and I'm queen giver over here, right? So people know, they've come to me like, hey, I'm short on rent, or hey, I got a tire that blew out, or hey, I need, a little 20 to get me through next week. I used to be that way until I started to ask myself this question, right? Like, is this in alignment with my goals? And it doesn't always have to be financially. It could be part of your time too, because many of the people that I work with struggle with time management. And if you're giving your time, which is, the most valuable resource that you have, away to other people, how is that going to help you get where you said you're trying to go?
Yes.
So I'll leave that one right there. And then number 3, I'm trying to remember, girl. I know this was in the podcast. I forgot what the third question was. But number 3, I would say, after you really asked yourself, how does this impact me? Is this in alignment with my goals? Is this a need or a want, right? Like, are you doing this because you feel like you need to, and then really diving in deep around that? Or am I doing this because I want to? And for me, sometimes the want outweighs the need because, for example, I've shared pretty openly that my dad is suffering from chronic heart failure. And oftentimes I was doing things out of the need because I felt like I needed to do it because nobody else would, like the grocery shopping or taking them to appointments. But when I started to operate out of I want to, and I didn't feel like it was that much pressure, it released so much from me. It took so much off my shoulders. So if you're thinking about whether you need to or you want to, that's really going to help you decide if this is in the right space for you, for what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And I would take that even further. I would shift the word for me, where it resonates a little bit more with me is versus need sometimes is, I think we often say I should or I have to.
And should all over ourselves, girl.
Girl, you know me. I'm like, we're shitting all over ourselves. I need a shirt. We talked about this before, but yes, I need that shirt and that mug. Like, you should. I'm shitting stop shitting all over me. But yes, we say should. I should do this. I should do that. And we're letting what we feel are these guilty societal norms of, I have to be the perfect mother, or I have to be the perfect wife, or the perfect employee, perfect friend, the perfect daughter. And it's like this fantasy ideal of the perfect whatever that we should all over ourselves. And that gets in the way of us really living the life that we really want. But also when even talking about, like, I was talking to, I don't know if it was my niece or someone else, but I was talking to someone about morning routines. And they were talking about, like, yeah, I have to go for a walk and I have to do my meditation and I'm like, no.
It was probably me you were talking to.
It's not that I have to, because that goes with the should. You're shoulding all self and changing the word from need to should to have. And and you need to be able to switch the mindset to, I get to.
Yes.
I get to meditate. I get to spend time with my father. I get to spend time with myself and go for that walk that gives me life. But when you say I have to do this, I should do that. It's your body feels it differently.
Yeah.
Your mind feels it differently. And your emotions show up in so many different ways. And shifting your words is one of the first steps. So I love that part of one of the questions you need to ask yourself before you start working with other people, because I think that's so, so, so important.
Yeah.
And kind of how you move forward.
And to your point, yes, our words have so much power, right? And just, I know for me, making that little shift from the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or I have to the wants and I get tos have shifted the energy and how I show up, not only for myself, but for others, right? Where I'm feeling not resentful about any of the things that I'm doing, whether it's going to work out or eating a salad or, going to spend time with the people that I love. I'm honored and thankful to be able to be in those different spaces because I want to be there. And I wanted to add to that too, that so often when we're doing the shoulds and the I have tos, when it's pertaining to helping other people, we're so busy taking on other people's stuff that doesn't leave room for us. And that's where the trouble comes in oftentimes too, right? Like, I should be able to do this, that, and the third for them. And then I should be able to turn around and do it for myself. But you have to really be careful of how much of what's on your plate, knowing whether or not it's really yours or somebody else's too.
Yeah. I mean, a huge part of understanding your capacity, whether you're there, you're at full, you're at medium, low, or whatever, is also, a good way to make sure that you're not at the low capacity is learning how to say no.
In a complete sentence, finished and done.
Yeah. No, without an explanation. And exactly, a complete sentence. You don't have to explain why you said no. You don't have to explain that, I said no because, I got, no is no. No means no. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I go back to, I don't know why I was saying the word no, and it totally dates me. I'm like, I think of Nancy Reagan and just say no. But Nancy was right. Just say no. I don't know about the drugs. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one to preach on that side of things, but I'm sure that's not the best either. But just say no.
Yeah. But
And in that, because we try to do,
though, right?
what was that? Repeat that?
The guilt that comes with that too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
People are afraid to say no. I know I was. I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I didn't want to let anybody down. I didn't want to appear like I couldn't handle it all, even though I knew that I couldn't. So we got to get in touch with, why are we afraid to say no? And why are we feeling like we have to give a whole explanation?
But I love that other part that you talked about, because I think that's part of how we end up beyond our capacity or at capacity. We don't want to look like we don't have it all, especially as women of color, because then we look weak. We look like we're just like, we're not, we lose that, we lose that strong Black woman, pride, and that little banner that we carry around with us, the cape. We lose the Superwoman cape if we're not able to. So, like, again, how did you personally get past the feeling like, oh my God, what will people think if I look like I can't, by saying no?
You know what? Honestly, what got me past it was my come to Jesus moment, literally being on life support and fighting for my life. Because in that moment, all I really could think about was, I'm about to leave these 2 kids who need me, right? And the reason that I'm here is because I've been saying yes to everybody else. Yes to everything and everybody except for myself. And I begged and I pleaded and I prayed, and I'm like, God, if you get me out of this, you know how we do. Please just help me. I promise I'm going to turn my life around. I had to say no. I had to say no to the fear of looking like a failure, the fear of being embarrassed because my marriage was crumbling. I had to really embrace that and step out on it. And so I had to come out of the hospital literally the day after I got out of the hospital, not even the next day, the same day. I came home and I told my husband that he had to leave. He had 2 weeks and he had to get out because being with him was killing me, right? And so I was terrified. I didn't want to be a single parent again, right? Like, I didn't want to deal with everybody looking. I was so worried about what everybody else was thinking before that, that I didn't push through. But it does something to you when you have a near-death experience. And so I don't want everybody to have to go that deep and to have that sort of near-death experience. Really, again, it's just being in touch with what you have going on and being willing to face the fears that come up for that. You know what you need to do. You're just afraid to do it, is really what it boils down to. That's where that gut and that instinct come in.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, and I have no clue who said it, but I've always just used it, is growth happens at the end of your comfort zone. And we don't like to get to the comfort zone because, we don't like to get to the end of the comfort zone because that doesn't always feel the best.
No.
But that's when the magic truly happens. But it's facing the hard stuff. It's asking yourself, those questions, where am I holding my attention? What am I willing to risk my comfort zone to get to the other side? What do I not know? Because the unknown sometimes scares a lot of us. But again, there's so much beauty when we're able to sit in that gap and having that space where we can push past the unknown to get to another space in our life.
Yeah. And I'll go back to that same example because although I was terrified, so my husband and I separated for about 4 or 5 months. And it was the best thing I've ever experienced because it allowed me to reshift my focus. I was spending so much time trying to help him and figure his stuff out that I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't taking care of the kids. And although it was scary, it was so good. I got to sit in it and sort through it, right? Versus just continuing to sweeping it under a rug and letting it allow me to burst at the seams. I rediscovered my purpose. I reconnected with myself. I reconnected with my children. I birthed a new business. There were just so many good things. So I love that you say being able to really sit in it and deal with it. There's so much greatness that's on the other side of that fear. And oftentimes that too is what leaves people at max capacity, right? Like they're afraid to take the stuff off their plate because then they really got to sit and deal with themselves.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't want to deal with ourselves. And that's why, I always, I'm a strong advocate for stillness. Just the stillness of not being busy, because oftentimes we aren't able to see what's right in front of us because we're so distracted with being so busy with doing all these different things for everyone else and just going, that we aren't seeing that, oh my God, I'm at the point of at capacity.
Yeah.
I'm at the point where I'm really about to lose it. I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. I'm having physical ailments. I'm having all these different things that are showing up. I'm having issues with my own faith, but I'm too busy going to stop and feel it, to recognize it, to open my eyes to what is right in front of us. Stillness is bomb.
It is bomb. And I recommend it to everybody, even if it's 5 minutes a day, right?
Yeah.
Like I was the one who would get up full throttle. I get up, make my bed, I brush my teeth, I'm getting the kid ready, I'm grabbing my breakfast, I'm dropping him off, I'm getting to work, eating breakfast through, work, all of those different things, never really stopping and allowing myself, not even 5 minutes, to just breathe, to just be still, to just think. And when I started to incorporate just those 5 minutes, I cannot tell you how dramatically, in a good way, my life changed. I was able to pace myself. I was able to feel more calm. I was able to be more productive and just really become a better version of myself. And I'm thankful for that. And now I spend time daily, not only in the morning, but also in the evenings. And now I've been implementing it in the afternoon as well, especially with this little 5-year-old running around here trying to take me out, y'all.
I love you. Not the 5-year-old taking you out.
I'm serious. It's something else. I have to regain my center and my peace. I don't care if I'm locking myself in the bathroom. I'm like literally breathing for 5 minutes. And
that the bathroom is a sanctuary place for many mothers, because that's the one place that has a lock that that someone can't get in.
Even if they're sticking their fingers under the door and knocking on the door, you can turn on the water and drown them out.
True. Or noise canceling headphones do work. But it's so great. I don't have a 5-year-old, so thank goodness. I'm not saying thank goodness.
You can borrow them if you want that experience.
I actually, sidebar, I was a nanny in Italy, so I have worked with kids several times. I'm good, girl.
What?
I'm good.
Okay.
But I do use my morning walks as part of my stillness. And I used to walk with music, and I still do some days. I like it. I mix it up. But oftentimes now I just want to be with my thoughts, because again, that music is distracting.
Right.
And I think I got this from, I think it's Deepak Chopra, and I think it's from the 7 laws of spiritual something, whatever. I'll put it in the notes because I can't remember.
Okay.
I read a lot of different books, but one of the things that he talks about is stillness being so important in our lives, and then taking that time. And he talks about, going to the point, like just adding more. So you talk about 5 minutes, then in 10 minutes, getting to the point where you can do it for a couple hours. But we need that stillness to truly just tap in and become aware and awaken to us.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes we're not awake. We're not awake to us. We're awake to what's going on in the world, or awake to what's going on social media. We know what's going on in Real Housewives, all these different things, but we're not awake to us.
Yeah.
And what's going on internally inside of us. And you can't continue to pour into other people if your cup is empty, because you're past your capacity. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't. And the stillness is so key. Like you literally took the words out of my mouth. When we talk about the awareness and knowing where you are and knowing what's on your plate, you cannot do that if you're running around busy out of your mind, right? Like you have to be able to pause so that you can really assess where you are. So I love what it is that you're doing with your community and this podcast. It's just dope. I'm so glad that you're helping us, especially as women of color, because we seem to be the ones that don't want to take that cape off because we don't want to look a certain way, right?
Yeah.
To really pause and take inventory of where we are, what we need help with, and being okay, not being okay. Right?
Yeah. And I think that's a huge one for this year. I think I really want to focus in on helping women be okay with not being okay. And I think 2020 was the year, 2020 2019 was the year where I had to learn that was 2019. I had to be okay with not being okay. And that's when I made a shift. That's when I was like, okay, I'm not okay. And it's okay not to be okay. I don't have to, when someone asks me how I'm doing, I'm not okay.
It's not that forced. I'm good. I'm fine. No.
Because I'm lying to myself and I'm lying to people. And again, your body feels those emotions, those lies, the acting. Acting is freaking fucking hard. Like, sorry, I just had to go to that level, but it is. It's like
you can't do it forever.
We've been doing, especially, I swear, for Black women and women of color, like Latinx women. I mean, we have to act at work. Oh my God. Hey, Karen, how's it going? Oh, you just, left me out of the project once again. Thanks. Oh, okay. I'm so happy to be part of this team that you really don't treat me like a teammate. And you do it at home and you do it and all these different things. Like you play this role.
All of them. Yeah.
It pushes us past our capacity playing this role. So when you are not truthful with yourself, you're taking yourself to a lower capacity.
And that's what that heart flow is all about. That's literally the very first podcast episode that I recorded, because I feel like everything, if you cannot be honest with yourself, first and foremost, about what's going on in your heart, you know what's working and you know what's not working, but we are so afraid to address the things that are going on in our heart. We're afraid of ourselves. We're afraid of hurting other people's feelings. We're afraid of not living up to what society says we should be living up to. And so really that honesty, that brutal honesty that you are having with yourself, is really what's going to allow you in 2021 to be able to make room and increase your capacity. And I want to say too, really quick, that oftentimes, I know I've been guilty of this, we take stuff off our plate and then we fill it right back up.
Of course, because we're like, we feel guilty, like, oh no, I'll take it back.
I should be. Don't you start with the shouldn't, right? Like cut it out. When you take it off, leave it off so that you do have an opportunity to have that stillness. Don't add nobody else. Don't get no new friends. Don't start a new job. Don't start a new business. I'm all for growing in those areas, but there's a time and a season for all of that. If you're truly looking to become the best version of yourself, and if you've already started this work prior to the new year, keep it going. The way for it to be sustainable is for you to make room for it so that you can be still and figure out what is helping you and what's no longer serving you.
No, I love that. And that's why next week I'm super, super excited about our, 5-day challenge, breaking up with the norm. Yes. Because it's breaking up with you. The breaking up with is the norm of what you do, and breaking up with, playing this role, breaking up with being at low capacity, breaking up with habits and toxic people. And so I'm super excited about this. But I think that besides your amazing capacity calculator, you have this other thing I want you to talk about that you're working on that will help people. Was it the balance booster? Am I botching?
Ma'am. Yes. And thank you for raving about the capacity calculator, because that's been my baby, right? To really help people see for themselves, right? Don't take our word for it. Take the quiz so that you can understand where your capacity is. But in addition to that, yes, I'm offering this Balance Booster, which is really a 90-minute session with me. And we're identifying where you're out of flow in those 5 different areas of flow. So you get to pick one of those 5. So whether it's your heart flow, your work flow, your health flow, your cash flow, or your faith flow, we spend 90 minutes together figuring out what's in the way, putting a strategy together to get you clear and confident on how to take your next best steps. And then the following week, I do a little bit of a follow-up with you just to make sure that you've gotten everything that you need and help to set you on the path to where it is that you're trying to go. And I'm super excited about that.
Well, I'll be signing up for that. So don't worry about that. You'll be seeing my name on that one. So how can other people follow and, besides getting the Balance Booster with you, but like, how can they work with you closer, follow you, find you on social media?
Absolutely. So I also have a podcast and would love if you come check me out. It's called Flow and Flourish. And there really it's the safe space where we talk openly and honestly about all the stuff that we just talked about here, right? Managing all those different hats and roles that we play and being able to navigate through it. And I have wonderful guests on there like Miss Danielle. We were on there. So come check her out over there too, y'all. She's so dope.
Episode 18. That was a fun chat. I think I was in my own spirit. And I was like, ooh, girl, I was just on a box and I was like, got in a zone.
But it was good. And that's the thing, right? We are able to show up authentically as ourselves and be supported and be surrounded by other women who are, whether they're facing similar struggles or have overcome them. So listen to me on the Flow and Flourish podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm over all of them. Also, you can find me on Facebook at Nicole Rhone. And I typically do a live Flow Friday every single Friday. So you can find me there. Sometimes it's myself or other guests that I have on there. And then on Instagram, I'm at Nicole_Rhone. And again, this is just all the different places that you can find me. And I will also be offering group coaching coming towards the end of January. So if you're interested in that, make sure that you reach out and DM me. I love to connect and know how all this is helping everybody. So I'm glad to be able to be here and share this with you.
You were such a blessing to so many people. And in order to be able to grow and have the new year, new me, you need to know where you are now. And you need to know, am I at capacity? Am I past capacity? And how do I kind of manage that? And so I think what you're doing is so beautiful. So thank you for being a guest. Thank you for doing what you're doing. And thank you for helping as we push together to help this wellness revolution for our sisters to make sure that they're living hella well. So I hella love you for that.
Oh, I hella love you too. Thank you again for having me. This was just amazing. And thank you too for everything that you're doing because you my big sister, right?
I'm smaller than you. What are you talking about? Why do I gotta be bigger? You can't confirm that I'm older than you. You're not sure of that.
Not at all. So you can be my twin sister then. How about that?
Yes. We sister. We like color purple sisters.
Thank you, Danielle.
So at the end of every show, I love to ask people questions. And so I'm sure because you are a follower and I know that you know the questions. So I think you should be ready.
Okay.
If not.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. So the first question is I'm going to switch it up because I'm like, she probably knows the questions. Am I going to switch it up? No, I'm just going to ask the question. So what does living hella well mean to you?
Living hella well to me means having peace mentally and emotionally and being able to show up authentically as myself in whatever room it is that I'm in.
Aisle or window?
Window, girl. I got to do the window. I like to see where I'm going. I love looking at the clouds, all of that. Window for me.
What's always in your travel bag?
I'm laughing. I always have a bonnet in my travel bag.
Good old Black woman. What's always in my bag? It's a bonnet.
It's a bonnet. And you see me show up to calls with my bonnet. That bonnet is everything. Because this natural hair journey, like my hair's really dry. So I I sleep wild, and I went through my hair falling out already. So I'm trying to keep it, girl. So that bonnet is everywhere.
I ain't mad at you in the bonnet. One day I will be a bonnet girl. I'm too lazy. First, I got to figure out how to take out the contacts. What was that?
I'm going to bring you one when I come visit you.
Oh, it's not like I don't have one. It's actually physically putting it on.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I'm not that person. That's why I also don't wear makeup, because I'm like, I don't feel like going through the process of like stripping it from your face.
It's too much work.
It's too much work. I'm a keep it simple girl. My cousin likes to call me bohemian.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, we'll see. It's always from who it's coming from. I love her though. Though she is definitely bougie, and she knows who she is. Shout out to my bougie cousin. And the last question is, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self about being a part of this wellness revolution and living life where you're putting your oxygen mask on first? You're knowing that you're at the highest capacity and not at the lowest.
Oh, that's good. I would tell my younger self to put herself on the priority list. Don't be afraid to prioritize self-care, because putting your mask on first allows you to really be able to show up in excellence and help the other people around you. And you're teaching a generation of other women how to do the same thing. We've been taught so long that we're supposed to give everything to everybody else. So I would absolutely tell the younger version of myself to make self-care a priority. Don't be ashamed about it. Don't feel guilty about it. And lead this revolution with us as we're trying to help other women figure out and do the same thing.
I love you. I can't sing, but I don't know why I felt like I needed to sing, because I was just like, yes, yes to everything on that. Yes. Thank you again for being on the show. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you got something out of it. I hope this is the first episode that will get you of the year to help you really start thriving and not surviving. Yeah. This is not the year of survival. That's in the past. 2021 is our year of thriving. We are no longer just surviving. It's not like it is what it is. No, we are thriving as women of color this year. And you got to make sure that you're living at high capacity to be able to thrive. So I encourage you guys to join us for the challenge next week, the 5-day challenge, the Breaking Up with the Norm challenge, starting next week. I encourage you to follow Nicole. I hella encourage you to make sure you grab that capacity calculator and start figuring out how you can thrive now. Thank you guys again, and have a good week. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.